Welcome to my channel. My name is Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer. In this video, I thought we would get into the energy surrounding Justin Trudeau for my fellow Canadians and even others around the world. I've had quite a few people ask me to dive into his charts. And so I thought in this video, we would go through his birth chart to start. And then I'm going to pull up a couple of his lunar return charts for the remainder of 2023. And that gives us an idea of major themes and topics that he will be moving through and energies he will be moving through for the rest of the year. And also, I'm going to pull up his solar return chart at the end, and that gives us an idea of major themes and topics for 2024. So let's start by going through some of the energy within his birth chart. Now, he's born December 25th, and that's why I thought we'd do a solar return chart as well, because in a couple of months, he will be starting a brand new solar cycle. So in his birth chart, there's a couple of energies I want to point out because I think that it can bring a little bit of an explanation as to why he is the way he is in a certain sense. So a few things that really pop out is this Pluto opposition to Mars. Now, if you look, there's actually a T square to his sun. So that can really indicate power and control. Now, I do think that in childhood, there was a lot of power and control within the home and with his father, because the sun can be an indicator of the father and the moon can be an indicator of the mother. And also, too, when we go through these chart demonstrations, you can also learn how to interpret your own chart. And I've been thinking about doing celebrity charts. So let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in that. If so, list some celebrities that you would like me to pull their chart up and go through their energies. And you can learn how to interpret your chart by doing that. And you really are able to see how certain energies can show up in one's life. So let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in that. Now, getting back to his chart, the sun can be an indicator of the father in your chart, and the moon is an indicator of the mother and also the home and your body. Now, he has the moon in Aries up here in the eighth house. He's got the sun in Capricorn, which can show that his father is this very hardworking, authoritarian individual, which he was the Prime Minister of Canada, at least the Pierre Trudeau was. Now, and I say at least Pierre Trudeau was because there's also indicators in his chart that could show that he has an absent father or a father that's unknown. And I'll get into that because I've heard a lot of people talk about how they think he could be Fidel Castro's son and that he's not actually Pierre Trudeau's son. And there is a couple indicators in his chart that could show that maybe that is a possibility. So we will get into that as well. But with this T square with Pluto, Mars, and the sun, I do think there's a lot of power and control dynamics with his father, but this is also playing out in his life now. I think power and control is really front and center and part of his deep inner desires because he also has Pluto forming a trine to Venus, and Venus is conjunct his north node, which is a part of his journey and purpose in his lifetime, right? The north node is this direction that he is moving into and feels he is meant to accomplish. And even though we may not agree with his journey is his own, and there are experiences that he's meant to experience in this lifetime, or at least try, right? And I think for him, he really feels like he's supposed to control the population of Canada. I mean, we've got Venus and the North Node in Aquarius, which can indicate the people, the collective, and this, connection to Pluto. So I absolutely think that shows up, that can be indicated, or that can really represent that, especially too with the trine to Saturn. I mean, we have this kite configuration. So there's a lot of power and control within his chart. I really do think he feels like he should be the dictator of Canada. He's talked a lot about how he truly loves the dictatorship in China. And I think that's something that he would really like to do here in Canada. And that does show up in his chart with this. I think he feels like that is that's definitely his mission and journey in this lifetime. Now, if we get into that the father thing, where we've heard a lot of people say they think that Fidel Castro is his son. I'm not going to say one way or another, but I will show a few indicators in the chart that could show that. So in the 12th house in your chart is where things go to hide. This can be places that are hidden, people that are hidden, things that are hidden. You want to look at 12th house energy. This is energy that is suppressed, that needs to be worked through consciously, but is also where things can be hidden. Now, the sun rules Leo. And so there is this connection with the sun and the 12th house, which can show that there is a father that is hidden. Another indicator is that we have Saturn here opposing Neptune, which I find interesting. There's also this T square to his ascendant, part of who he is can be very unknown, especially when it comes to the father in his life or authority figure. There's something there that has definitely affected him in some way, but also is confusing. It's very unknown. And I think that's affected to his direction in his lifetime. Now, I also want to talk about the moon opposition to Uranus, because we have this exact opposition. And the moon being an indicator of the mother, this can show too that there was just a lot of instability with his mother, maybe within his home, and also with Neptune being in the 4th house. And also his chart ruler is in the fourth house. Home and family. And I think it's pretty obvious home and family had a huge influence with his life direction, right? But was very front and center, throughout his life and still is. But that moon opposition to Uranus, I almost feel like really kind of shows this flakiness about his mother, which, I have kind of looked into Margaret Trudeau a little bit. Yeah, I think that there was like a little bit of flakiness there. But that it can show just a lot of instability within the home and with the mother. Now, in adult years, this can show, one that can possibly struggle with anxiety, but also one too, because of the moon being in Aries, that there could be a lot of emotional outbursts, even maybe angry outbursts. Now, one more energy I want to get into before we move on to his lunar return chart is this Chiron here in the 8th house in Aries. So he is going through his Chiron return. And not only that, but we have the North Node moving through Aries and the South Node moving through Libra. So there's a lot of changes taking place with his money and finances between now and 2025. But he's also going through this huge psychological transformation, triggers, activations. There's a lot activated at the moment, which really would have been triggered back in April when we had our first solar return in Aries right here. I mean, this is happening right on top of his moon in Chiron. So there's a lot going on with deep inner childhood wounds that really started around the age of 9. And there's going to be a lot of triggers of that. And we will get into that because it does show that too in his lunar return chart. But I wanted to mention that he is going through his Chiron return and also having the eclipses, on his moon and in his 2nd and 8th house can show that, yes, he's going through a lot of psychological turmoil and transformation, but there's also going to be a lot of changes with his money and finances over the next year and a half. So now let's get into his lunar return chart. Here is his lunar return chart, which started September 30th. So this is for the month of October. Now, in his lunar return chart, he has his ascendant in Cancer. So we want to interpret his lunar return chart, but also compare it to his birth chart. So in his birth chart, he is a Virgo rising. Now, Virgo is right here in the 8th house. So if we match the lunar return chart to his birth chart, his ascendant is actually in his 11th house. So there's a lot of focus on the people of Canada, social groups, humanitarian pursuits. And because he is the Prime Minister of Canada, I look at the 11th house as, the people of Canada for him. So I think there's a lot of focus on that. The people, how he is portrayed, and now he has the moon in his 10th house with the south node. So there's a lot of focus too. And because it's a lunar return chart, our main focus too is where the moon is within this chart. And being in the 10th house, there's a lot of focus around his career. Now the moon is conjunct Chiron, which we will see throughout the remainder of the year because of Chiron being at that 18 degrees, which shows there's a lot of activations of this deep psychological wound that he carries. And it could be the fact of everything kind of going on right now. I mean, he's not a very liked person. And I think that is triggering some inner wounds of his from childhood. But there is a lot of focus on his career the month of October. Now, we also have this opposition to Mars. We have Mars here, conjunct the South Node. So there could be something coming back from the past for him, but there's also something that can be severed. Now, Mars ruling his moon up here in the 10th. That Mars placement is quite significant. So Mars conjunct the South Node can show an ending or a letting go of something with around his career, but it could also show that there might be something coming back from the past too that he is having to address with that South Node, or that there is something ending or severing for him. There's something coming up that might be either that he may have to let go, he may have to release. This could be an ending. This could be having to sever something. This could be something coming back from the past. We also have Venus forming a square to Uranus. Now, Venus is the ruler of the 11th house in his lunar return chart and squaring Uranus. I almost wonder if there's going to be something very shocking. Now, I'm not sure when that incident happened in the House of Commons because that could be what this is showing. I don't know if it was before September 30th or not. So it's either that or there can be something else very shocking coming up. So if you know, let me know in the comments below. Because I know he's at odds with India right now. And then there was that incident in the House of Commons. I'm not sure if both of those occurred before September 30th. So let me know in the comments below, because if not, there's something else coming in for the month of October, because this can indicate that that thing that happened in the House of Commons for sure. But it can also, if it happened before this date, then it could be maybe something else showing up. And the moon also being the chart ruler in his lunar return chart, because here he's a Cancer rising for his lunar return chart. His ascendant is in Cancer. So there's a lot of focus on career. Not only are we looking at the moon because it's a lunar return chart, but the moon is extra significant because the moon is the ruler in the lunar return chart. So career is front and center for him for the month of October. And we also have the midheaven conjunct Neptune, which shows that there's something very unclear with the direction he's moving in with his career. And it being in the 9th house. The 9th house can represent foreign cultures, something overseas, other countries. There's a lot going on with that. There's something unclear. There can be even too, because Saturn rules that 7th house of business partnerships and other people, and Saturn being in Pisces and this energy being in the 9th house, there's something that can be very unclear with that. We also have this in conjunction to the South Node, meaning that something that has shown up for him in the past can be coming up again that he's having to address, and that's making his career direction very unclear. Now, we also have Mercury here forming a trine to Uranus too. And again, that can be part of this energy that has already taken place, or this can be something new showing up. Now, Mercury is his chart ruler in his birth chart. So this energy is quite significant, but this can mean that there is something that he is either saying that's very shocking, something he's implementing on the people that is very shocking. And it is a part of this energy. So this can be the energy, or this can be what already took place, or something new coming in that's very out of the blue, very shocking. Okay, so now let's look at his lunar return chart for November. Okay, so here is his next lunar return chart, which starts October 27th. So this is going to be the energies and themes and topics he's moving through for November. Now, in this lunar return chart, he has his ascendant in Sagittarius, which Sagittarius falls in his fourth house within his birth chart. So there could be a lot of focus on home and family this month. In the month of November, there can be a lot of focus on home and family, or his family, or maybe, something going on with his family, because we do know he is going through that separation or divorce. It could be something along those lines, or maybe having to deal with some properties or real estate, something like that. Now, we also have Virgo, which is his ascendant in his birth chart in the 10th house. So I think, again, career is going to be front and center. Now, in his lunar return chart, the ruler of his 10th house is in the 12th house of endings. So this is interesting. There could be something ending within his career. There can also be a lot of his business partnerships ending, because Mercury rules that 7th house as well. So there can be a lot of those one-on-one partnerships, personal and business partnerships coming to an end. We also have Mars forming an opposition to Jupiter retrograde, Jupiter being the ruler of his lunar return chart. I think that's quite significant, that there's something really powerful showing up around something coming to an end. Because if we follow the trail here, his ascendant is in Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. Jupiter is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is up here in the 10th house, showing that there's a lot around his career and daily routine changing, and work, because work is also in the 6th house. And then the ruler of his career is here in the 12th. So when we follow the trail, it does lead to the 12th house of endings. So there can be something else ending here. There can be something ending around his business partnerships and career. Now, with that Mars, I feel like there's something aggressive taking place. And the sun ruling the 9th house of foreign cultures, other countries. There can be a lot he's dealing with as well. There can be endings of partnerships overseas and connections overseas, but there's also something, going on overseas or in other countries that is quite front and center the month of November, that he's having to move through. And I think that this month there's a lot of endings for him. Yeah. Now, we also have the moon in Aries here in the 5th house of children, creativity, passion, pleasure, romance, things that he loves to do. But the moon is forming an inconjunction to Venus here in the 10th house. So there's also a lot going on here around, and the moon also ruling the 8th house. So that can be also other people's money coming in from outside resources, partners, finances, other people's money, psychological healing and transformation. So again, there's a lot of this kind of deep inner wounds, psychological energy taking place for him, being triggered and activated, especially with that moon conjunction to Chiron. He's moving through a lot of, I honestly think that there's a lot, like I mentioned before, a lot of deep inner wounds, psychological wounds being activated and triggered, that he's having to address. Yeah. And Venus ruling the 11th house, which can be the people, and the south node being there. there could be something too that he's possibly implementing on the people. We could hear more. And I even look to with the 11th house of censorship. So there might be a lot more with censorship on the people with this energy as well. Okay, so now let's take a look at his next lunar return chart. Okay, so here is his lunar return chart really for the month of December. It starts November 23rd. So it pretty much goes to the end of December. But in this lunar return chart, we've got Gemini. His ascendant is in Gemini, meaning the ruler is Mercury right here in the 7th house. So there can be a lot of focus on those business partnerships and one-on-one connections. We also have Neptune in the 10th house, Saturn in the 10th house, the midheaven in Aquarius with the 9th. So there can be a lot of focus on the people and other countries and something with that. And the moon being in the 11th house. So yeah, there's this with this chart and this moon opposition to Venus. Again, there can be something ending. Venus is the ruler of his 12th house. Yeah, I feel like there's something going on here, whether he is inserting himself into something going on overseas or with other countries. There's something going on here, and also something he may be implementing on the people, because Mercury is with this in conjunction to Uranus, which can be very shocking. There can be something very shocking going on here. Uranus also ruling that 9th house and that midheaven being in the 9th house. So there's a lot of focus on other countries, the people of other, like the leaders of other countries. There's a lot going on here the end of the year. And we have his ascendant forming a trine to the midheaven. And there's actually this kite configuration, which is pointing towards the north node in the 11th house. There can be something here he's trying to implement towards the people. It has a lot to do with his direction this month. Because see how we have this here, but Neptune is forming a square. So there's something not clear, and there's something hidden with why he's doing something, why he's implementing something on the people. There is something very deceiving here going on. So we'll have to see what's presented. Also, too, I mean, I don't really watch the news, but I do kind of keep up with some things going on through alternative media sources. And so if there is anything else big that kind of happens between now and the end of the year, I will do an updated video, because it'll be really interesting to see what this means, because there's a lot of collective energy here where there's a lot of focus on what he is doing and implementing on the people, on the collective. And also, too, there's a lot of focus with, I mean, yeah, that midheaven. And also, too, a lot of focus with his connections overseas and other countries. So we'll have to see what happens here. And we also have this Mars forming a sextile to Pluto, which can be power, control. Mars and the sun are in this out of sign conjunction, which is forming a square to Saturn. So there can be something implemented around power and control on the people. Now, again, we have the ruler of his 10th house and 7th house in the 12th house of endings and things that are hidden. So there's also, again, something very unclear with his career direction and business dealings and business connections. There can be a lot ending here as well with the ruler being in. There can be a lot of endings around his career. And we even have this Uranus kind of squaring the midheaven as well, which can be something very shocking, like something ending very abruptly, or something happening very abruptly that can be shocking and disruptive, either to him or to the people. Okay, so now let's pull up his solar return chart for 2024. Okay, so here we have his solar return chart for 2024, which starts December 25th, 2023. Now, we want to keep in mind that he is going through his Chiron return, which is here in the first house of his solar return. We also have the eclipses taking place in Aries and Libra, which is in his first house and seventh house of the solar return. So that shows there is a lot of changes going on with him and his life direction and a lot of his partnerships over the next year. We have the ascendant conjunct the North Node exact. So there's a lot of focus on his life direction, his purpose, his mission for the entire year. We have his ascendant and North Node forming a trine to Mars, which in this chart is his chart ruler for the solar return. And this trine exact to Mars, there can be something severing here. There can be something implemented that is extremely powerful. With overseas, other countries. Yeah, he can be taking action with something that has to do with other countries because of that Mars in the ninth house. We want to keep in mind that Mars represents anger, aggression, conflict, war, violence, but also can indicate motivation, how you are taking action, your drive. So there is a lot of focus, a lot of taking action towards other countries, I think. Other countries. And in his birth chart, Mercury is his chart ruler, and there's this conjunction with Mars and Mercury. Now, Mercury is retrograde. So I think there is a lot of like uncertainty with the direction he can possibly be moving in, and a lot of uncertainty with how things may end. I feel there is a lack of clarity with something here that he's moving through. Now we have the sun in the 10th house with the midheaven. And so the sun is the key player in his solar return chart. So there is a lot of focus on his career for the entire year. But again, the ruler of the 10th house is here in the 12th house of endings. And we have Neptune. And so this can mean that there is something quite significant ending with his career. This can also mean there's something hidden about his career. There can be deception here. But to be honest, I mean, this could really mean big endings around his career, I think, for sure. And Jupiter ruling that ninth house too. There is something really big taking place with him and his placement in Canada, his role in Canada, but also other countries and his connections to other countries. We've got Venus here in the 8th house. Venus is the ruler of the 7th and the South Node. And so he's letting go of a lot of partnerships, but there is this trine to Neptune. So there's something very unclear going on, or something very deceiving, confusing, deception. There's something going on here with the people in his life, possibly a lot, or like I said, coming to an end, a lot of those connections. But there's also something here that's very unclear for him and his connections. Also have Mars forming a sextile to the South Node and a trine, which we kind of already went through that North Node energy. So Mars is connecting to the nodes, showing that again, there is a lot of focus on life direction, a lot of releasing and letting go, and a lot of moving forward with a direction he feels is really a part of his journey, purpose, and mission in this lifetime. Now, his solar return is also too just before, like a day before the full moon in Cancer. So he also kind of has this full moon energy in his solar return chart as well. There can also be a lot of focus with his children too, because of that sun ruling the 5th house. So his children may come up as well, or something around his children. And that showed up in his lunar return chart as well. Um, I noticed that there was something around his children too. So we may hear something around his children, or he may be moving through something with his children. And we have the moon, which is the ruler of the fourth house of home and family, in this opposition to Mars. So we do know, and this can also have to do with his divorce being finalized or personal relationships, right? This moon opposition to Mars and this kind of connection with other people's money, Venus. Yeah, there can be also his divorce possibly being finalized and something he's having to do within his home and family property real estate, like maybe having to move, sell a home. There can be something going on with that as well, with that moon opposition to Mars. And there's this in conjunction with Uranus and Mars. Uranus ruling that 11th house of social groups. So there can be something also very disruptive or abrupt, chaotic, going on around like people, social groups, online connections. There can also be like money coming in from overseas, maybe. I mean, I don't even know if I should say that, but that could be a thing, like that Jupiter being in the second house, and then the ruler in his. I mean, there can definitely be some money dealings going on. So that's pretty much a lot of the major energies I see. However, if anything else takes place or anything else kind of pops out to me that I missed in this video, I will do an updated video. But thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that, this kind of helps you get an idea, because what's going on with him is kind of showing us Canadians what we're moving through and or what we can be moving through. But let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Also, let me know in the comments below if you would like me to start doing celebrity charts, because I think that would be fun. And it also helps you learn how to interpret your own birth chart. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will connect with you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe also if you align with my energy, and I will connect with you in the next one.